For our final project, we decided to do a service learning project at Bellamy Elementary School in Wilmington, North Carolina. We wanted this project to introduce the children to scientific and technological fields, confront and attempt to overcome stereotypes associated with these fields, and show them how interesting science can be in the process. To augment this discussion aspect, we wanted to have the children draw pictures of scientists before and after our presentation so that we could see if we impacted at least a few of the children. We also decided to do an experiment with them making silly putty, which they could take home as a reminder of the day's events. Our implementation of this project involved Claire and Cameron leading a discussion using the PowerPoint Mary made with the two fifth-grade classes in order to introduce them to scientific and technological fields and show them that these fields are fun and interesting. In the process, we also discussed stereotypes and how one does not have to fit a certain stereotype to go into a scientific field or technological field. This discussion was aided by having the children draw a picture of a scientist before and after a discussion. After this discussion, we did an experiment with them using a formula to make silly putty out of water, school glue, and borax. The purpose of this experiment was to show the children that science can be fun and interesting. Also, since the putty didn't turn out exactly like it was supposed to in the first class, we got to teach the children that even if the result of an experiment is not exactly what you expected, it is not useless because, in this case, it specifically showed the effect of adding too much water. They were able to take the silly putty home with them to show their parents and talk about what they learned and experienced, and also to remind them of this experience. This is the PowerPoint that we used for each class. The first thing we talked about with the children was what their favorite scientific field was, and then asked them to draw a picture of what they thought someone in that field would look like. In the next clip, you will hear some of the things we talked about and see how excited and enthusiastic the children were, which made them more likely to listen to everything else we had to say.
Who's good with computers? Yeah, not so much myself. Who loves video games? You think you want to design video games someday?
To begin with, the kids had many ideas about what science is and how they thought it impacted them. Here are a few.
Anybody else have any other ideas? You just both ideas today. What else you got? Force of motion. Force of motion? Okay. Skeleton. You had something, didn't you? Yeah? Jars filled with chemical stuff. Alright. I'll take three more. Alright. What you got? Earth. Earth? That's Earth. Weather. Weather. Okay. How else do you think science impacts you? Look. Not this one apparently. I know what you got. There was a science. If there wasn't science, you couldn't eat anything because you wouldn't have been able to make it. What you got? Interesting. Interesting. Do you find that interesting? If there wasn't any science, you couldn't have had a man on the moon? We wouldn't even know what the moon is or what it's made of. You're right. How our body functions. We wouldn't have technology. That's a big one, especially in this day and age. Cell phones, there'd be no medicine. There'd be no medicine? So, tech weather coming, meteorologist. Would you say cell phone for technology?
We then defined science a little more and talked about other ways that science impacts them that they had not thought of. The next part of the discussion involved a general introduction to stereotypes surrounding the scientific fields. Here is part of that introduction.
Who here, when they think of a scientist, thinks of like the stereotypical mad scientist, like the picture on the left here?
Who drew a mad scientist? Admit it. Come on. Yeah, there we go. There you go.
Right. Okay, so typically when you guys think of like scientists and like engineers and mathematicians, you think of all these guys right here. Think of somebody looking at a microscope, think of the old guy sitting at a computer being bored. Think of the crazy scientist mixing up some mag concoctions. But actually there's a lot of real life people who you wouldn't expect to be scientists that are scientists.
Following the introduction to science, we presented the children first with the person that they would recognize, someone in a field who fits that stereotype. We then proceeded to show them the next slide, which contained pictures of diverse races and both genders who do not fit the stereotype of their field, in order to expand the children's view of these fields and who is and can be involved in them. Additionally, we showed them a video for each field which explained more of what someone in that field does, in order to further expand these children's views of the field and pique their interest. At the end of this presentation discussion, we had half of the children draw another picture of a scientist, and it was interesting to see that some of them changed while others stayed the same. Meanwhile, the other half of the children were led through the experiment of making silly putty, and when both groups were done, they switched. This concluded our time with the children. Though the kids have been exposed to some areas of science, many of them do not realize the extent to which science impacts them, or that they can make a difference by being in a scientific field. Now, they hopefully understand that there is a place for them, no matter who they are or what their background is, in the fields of science and technology, if they wish to pursue these fields. They are not far from starting the next chapter of their lives in middle school. At that time, they will be asked what they want to do with their lives and steered one way or another. The information we presented them with will help them understand that they do not have to go where they are steered, and that the ultimate decision about their lives is up to them. One of our findings in this project was that several times the children brought up detailed information, like about ecosystems, that they knew from school. However, this information was school learning and only included a few of the scientific fields. Since our presentation covered more than just a few scientific fields that everyone knows, it expanded their view of what science is. A few of the things that the speakers noticed were that at least half of each class gave us their full attention and even seemed interested in what we had to say. Also, some kids were the comedians and tried to get the class to laugh at their comments. Some kids were embarrassed when called on and stammered through their answers, and others tried to learn more than what we had on the screen or knew ourselves. Most of the time, when a child held a view in line with a stereotype, they did not have a reason for why they had that view. They just thought that because it was what society had told them. While looking through the drawings, it was clear that some kids' views changed and some did not. For this first set, the student drew a stereotypical male mad scientist, but after the presentation they drew a female in regular clothes with a clipboard. Though this does show that their view changed somewhat, both before and after their scientist is wearing glasses, which shows that they do still hold on to some of the stereotype of the nerd being a scientist. These next three drawings went from mad scientist type characters to ordinary people, and one also changed from male to female. This person drew a sort of stereotypical mad scientist both before and after the discussion, and even went in more detail on the after drawing. Several other students did this, and it may be because their view did not change from beginning to end of the presentation, but it also could be because it is more fun to draw a mad scientist than a regular person at times. Here are some of the other drawings. You can see that some of the children drastically changed their drawings and views from before to after, while others stayed with their original views. From the drawings and discussion with the children, it was clear that a few already had a broader view of science than we expected. Some did change and expand their views of the scientific fields as a result of our presentation, and some did not change their views at all. This reinforces the old saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. The difference was because, though we have the best intentions of reaching out to all the kids and showing them that science is fun and you don't have to fit into a certain stereotype to be in science or technological fields, some of them won't care or won't think it applies to them, and so we will not be able to get through to them and change their views. Also, although many of our slides had people of several different ethnicities on them, none of the children ever made any comments about that. So either children are more colorblind than adults are, or their reaction to this was something internal that they did not feel comfortable voicing aloud. Either way, there was not really any racial specification in any of the drawings, although there were many different hair colors and styles which could suggest these differences. Our recommendation is to introduce kids that you know to science, especially if you are in a scientific field, and show them that even though you are pursuing this field, you still have time to do other things, such as recreational activities. Another recommendation is for schools or communities to develop educational programs for children about the aspects of future careers and equality for everyone. A third recommendation is for more funding or donations, or even just permission for field trips which involve diverse fields of science. This concludes our presentation. We all learned a lot through this project about ourselves and educating future generations.